Tim's got a lot of pressure on him. Drew's here.
There's a lot going on. Pressure.
Well, good evening. Call this meeting of the Newark City School Board into session at 6:35. Mr. Valadares, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Blind?
Here.
Mr. Blowers? Here. Ms. Nicken?
Here.
Mr. Weber?
Here.
Mr. Carr?
Here. And Warren, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Sure.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Now's an opportunity for any communication from the floor. You'll have up to 5 minutes to share. Please come forward, state your name and your address. All right, seeing no one, we'll move on to our fabulous treasurer's recommendations. Julio?
Yes, we have items from letter A through G this time. Letter A is the approval of minutes for Board of Education meeting for September 11, 2017. B is the approval of the 5-year forecast, which I will be giving you a presentation here shortly. C is the approval of September 27 financial statements and payments to vendors. D is approval of the October 2017 amendment appropriations. E is the approval of contract with Licking County Educational Service Center for participation with BCAC STEP. F is the approval of contract with Licking County Educational Service Center for the after-school program. And the letter G is the approval of parking lease agreement due to the fire that was happened at the garage, maintenance and garage department. I will be giving you a short version summary of the 5-year forecast. However, you do have 3 documents with you there. You have the 5-year forecast with a bunch of numbers. You'll see them in there. And you also will see the notes to the 5-year forecast. So if you don't like to see the numbers, you can go to the wording in there. And if you don't like to read, then you can look pictures. There's a 3rd document in there as well. So with that being said, I'm going to give you a short presentation. Cover all ground. I'm going to project over the 2 as well, that we don't have to. There's none. You can see that well in there.
Oh, they won't come off? Oh. Oh, safety light. Okay. Unsafe.
Okay, what you do see there is the summary of the 5-year forecast, which starts with actual numbers from 2018 all the way through 2022. And there's also to the left, we got the actual numbers for the last 3 fiscal years, so that we can have some sort of a history along with what we're projecting over the next 5 years. For revenues, you can see there that the total revenues of our general operating fund in 2018 is projected to be about $74.8 million, and it goes all, and then 19, 20, 21, and 22, you can see that the numbers are similar, are very constant as far as revenues is concerned. I believe that when you do the math, that is about an average on an annual basis of 1% increment each of those years. However, the total expenditures is a different picture. They're also increasing, from $71.9 million all the way to $80.2 million by 2022. That is an average, annual average of about 3% each year. So we are on an average of expenditures 3% and revenues is 1%. So you can tell that the expenditures are creeping up over the years, which you can tell that in the third row there. By 2020, we're seeing that expenditures are starting to exceed our revenues by $2.9 million in 2020, $7.5 million in 2021, and $7.8 million in 2022. That then is reflected in our cash balance June 30th. By the end of this fiscal year, we're expecting to end up with $31 million in the bank. But by the end of 2012, you can see that that drops to $14.7 million. Now, that is because we have an emergency levy that is expiring by January of 2020. So those revenues are no longer being received, provided we don't renew the levy. However, if you look at the numbers right before the last numbers, if we were to renew our levy in 2020, now we recoup those dollars again, and then we're starting to collect $3 million in 20, and then it cumulative to 8 by the following year and 14 million by the end of 2022. So therefore, our cash balances then start being healthy again, and it is constant over the next 5 years, from $28 million down to 27. So it is very important that we do renew our levies in 2020, which we're expecting to be on the ballot by 2019, as early as November of 2019. Now, where our revenues are coming from. This chart will show you that 57% is state sources, directly from the state, and 30% is local. Of the 30%, 25%, almost 26% is nothing but real estate taxes. So it's very critical that we pass levies constantly, because that's what the majority of the revenues are coming from, is the real estate taxes. And income tax is about $12.4 million. So those are the major categories that the district receives monies from. Being the largest, the largest is the state foundation. What are our challenges with our operating revenues? Well, increasing revenues outside the real estate property is always a challenge that any district has when it comes to generate additional revenues. The other thing is the uncertainty of the state funding. As you can see, the little trend that we have in there, that fiscal year 16-17, the district was receiving 7.5%, up to 7.5% from the months that they received the previous year. So we were a cap district, about 7.5%. This new biennial, which is 18 and 19, it dropped from 7.5% to 3%. Rumors beginning in January or so said that there were going to be about 5% cap. The House and the Senate keep going back and forth. But at the end of the day, we ended up with a 3% cap, so that's a reduction of 4% from the last biennial to this new biennial. What that tells you is what's going to happen the following biennial, which is in 19 and 20. It's a no. We're going to remain at the 3% cap, or are we going to go above or below? We don't know. So that's an uncertain thing that we need to keep an eye on in the years out. Therefore, that's what is important for the school district to renew our emergency levy in 2019, because it expires in 2020. So we're definitely going to be working very hard at that in the months to come. So we just look at our revenues now, where our expenditures are. These are the categories for our expenditures: wages, materials, services, and benefits. But when you combine wages and benefits, 74% of our revenue goes directly to salaries and benefits. So the major category right there is those two right there, with the third being purchase services at 22%. We do have some challenges too as well when it comes to our expenditures. So we need to align them. What are our challenges? Well, one of the things would be is that we need to look at ways to reduce salaries in discretionary expenditure without affecting the classroom. We always need to find that. We always need to think that students come first, and we need to look at that all the time. The other thing is continue to monitor the year-over-year expenditures in order to be sustainable. Those are the things that our team, administrative team, works all the time diligently to make sure that that happens year over year. So, another picture to look at the general fund revenue, expenditures, and cash balances. You can see the red line in that it's going up every year. It doesn't have a curve in that; it just goes up all the time. Unlike revenues, so revenues is it goes up all the way to 2019, and then it takes a dip in 2020, and it goes down all the way to 2021, and starts again creeping up a little bit. So the gap between the red line, which is our expenditures, and the blue line, which is our revenues, as the years goes out, gets bigger, meaning the expenditures are exceeding our revenues. That's something that we need to keep an eye on and pay attention in the years to come. Therefore, that's related to our cash balances. By 2019, we are about over $31 million, but with that gap that we have with expenditures exceeding revenues without renewing the emergency levy, then our cash balance is deep all the way there from 31 to closer to $14, $15 million. So that's another picture to see where our cash balance is going to happen over this coming next 5 years based on our current information that we have for the forecast. So you can tell that's another way to stack them up. Where do they stack? Wages is the major category for our expenditures, followed by the benefits. And then third is the service, the purchase services. With the top of at the bottom line would be the materials, which is significant. So those are the three major categories and expenditures that all our revenues are going towards in the years out. Having said that, we see that our cash balance, where do we end up? You can tell there that the orange line is the 30-day cash ratio that we need to have in order to survive for operating expenditures. So the maroon bar in that is the revenues that we'll have without when it doesn't have the renewal in it. And then it drops down to the yellow is when you take into consideration the cash balances, you take away the encumbrances that you have out there to pay for the following year. So it further brings it all down to roughly about $14 million by the end of 2022, and compared to about close to $20 million when we started this fiscal year in the cash balance. So again, the 5-year forecast with the numbers that we have can have a major impact on the operations as we move out with the operations. So the forecast overview is that, operating revenues from 18 to 22 are relatively constant, a 1% average in each of those years. Unlike the expenditures, we are projecting that they are going to grow at a yearly average of 3% each of the next 5 years. Which means that our ending cash balances over the next 5 years are expected to be positive and fairly constant year over year. Residential values increased 10.3% based on the county auditor's report due to the reappraisal of 2017. You already got your bills, I would imagine, for the increases you got. To some, not all of them, but some do get some increase in there. And on average, it's a 10.3% in our community. We need to look at also the growth rates in discretionary expenditures could deviate from the forecast. Again, with the numbers that we have right now is what we're projecting, but they can significantly change due to any rates in the discretionary expenditures in the years out. So we need to keep an eye on those expenditures moving out. In conclusion, expenditures start exceeding revenues in 2020. We need to continue to look at programs that implement cost measures in discretionary expenditures, again, without affecting the classroom. And we also need to work on the levy for the emergency renewal in 2019. to start collecting in 2020. Thank you. Any questions? Yeah, I love to sing, but I can't. You gotta teach me that. Okay.
You talk about the renewal levy, just making clear that that's not any new revenue that we would be getting as a district. It is a levy that was passed in 2009 and renews
That is
every
correct.
5
It
years.
is a renewal of the levy that we passed 10 years ago. So every 10 years, the Board of Education can renew that levy at no additional cost to the taxpayers.
Do I remember right, it's 4 months cash reserve that it's recommended that a district have?
The government, the GFOA recommends 6 months of cash reserves.
So we're still a little below that.
Yes.
Still pretty decent shape.
Correct. So usually, right now, at the end of 2018, with the $31 million, we could operate for over 150 days without being in trouble. So that's a good cash balance to have in order something was ever to happen. But
Any more questions?
any other questions?
We need to have a motion to approve Treasurer's recommendations A through G.
I'll make it.
Thanks, Warren.
Second.
Tom will second it. Would you please call the roll?
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Mr. Blind,
Yes.
Mr. Bowers,
Yes.
Ms. Nickam,
Yes.
Mr. Carr,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you, Julia. That's an excellent forecast.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And as always, that's a conservative thought.
Correct.
You're not expecting.
Very conservative.
Yeah. Very good, very good. Superintendent's recommendation.
Okay, just make sure that all board members have the addendum, which is the one supplemental contract for Jennifer Henson. Before I put my glasses on, I was going to say Jennifer Hudson, speaking of singing. Jennifer Henson. And also the readoption of board policy 226101, parent participation in Title I programs. Under personnel, we have a resignation and one disability and one retirement. I'd like to talk about Janet Martin for a moment. This was a surprise to me, but I think all of us here in the school can appreciate the fact that Janet has been out at Liberty since I've been here, and possibly before that as the custodian in there, and that building always shines. But not only does it always shine with her leadership from it, but a very positive attitude about the kids and the staff, and takes a lot of pride in her work. So we just want to take a moment and thank Janet for her work in the district. We also have some leaves of absences on there, appointments and assignments, supplemental contracts that should take care of most of our winter and some of our spring. I appreciate Barb's worked with the board on that, along with Denise and the union with those positions. I would call your attention to Colin Brown under Group 4, and make sure you cross out the first two on that difference between 23,000 and 3,300. So please cross out that first two. Make note of that. Salary and position adjustments, tutors, substitutes. We have a list of substitutes, and I would mention to our community that if you have a 4-year degree, you're eligible to become a substitute or a guest teacher in our district. If you have that interest, please contact Mrs. Quackenbush. I know we are always in need of good guest teachers in our district, and so if you have that interest or know somebody who might, please let us know. Item 6, the tutors. Other, Trent Montgomery, I believe that should be a 2-year contract on your agenda as the assistant treasurer that Julio is recommending, and I think we feel very fortunate to get somebody of Trent's caliber. Julio, that's a good pick. Trent not only professionally is a good choice, but personally too. I mean, he's got a very good attitude about life, and will fit really well in here. And then item B, it's recommended the Board of Education approve the running of a public notice for the purpose of advertising a public hearing to receive input on the issue of rehiring Douglas Shute, who's currently employed in Newark City School District as superintendent, who will be retiring and seeking reemployment with the Newark City School District in the same position following his years of service. So items 1 through 8.
All right, and I'm going to ask 1 through 8 with the removal of one Laura Carr.
Yes.
Group 4. There, we'll vote on her separately if that's okay. So everything 1 through 8 with the exception of that one individual. Motion to approve that.
So moved. No
Thanks,
second.
Mike. Warren, second.
Who moved?
Mike. Call the roll when you're ready.
Mr. Blowers?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Blind?
Yes.
Ms. Neckham?
Yes.
Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Now I would like to recommend, or we need to vote, new motions, or just
Need another motion?
need another motion for Laura Carr
So
as
moved.
a basketball coach.
I'll
You
second.
moved? Thank you. Bev and Warren. She appreciates that, I'm sure.
She
Yeah, I'm
is the
sure.
better half of the family.
What's that?
Said she is the better half.
By far. Smarter, better looking, the whole deal, man. So,
Okay. Ms. Neckham?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Blind?
Yes.
Mr. Blowers?
Yes.
And Mr. Carter?
I abstain.
Motion carries.
Yeah. And by the way, I was really tempted to vote no on Janet.
Oh,
Yeah.
Really, really, you know, and I mentioned it to her sister there at the, I might vote no, because she has just been phenomenal, so.
yeah, good lady.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Students and
Okay,
curriculum.
students and curriculum, special education contracts. A is students out of our district, and then B is contract with Eagle Wings, C, Buckeye Ranch, and D, Learning Spectrum. We also have gifts and a very amazing effort. If you've been out to Hillview and have seen the track, I've been out there a few times, and I will tell you, our kids are really enjoying that track, and the staff has. They've had some great activities out there, but not just that. I've heard the stories of the community walking on the track at night, which is nice to see. And so the PTA at Hillview did an amazing job of raising those funds. Again, they raised 100% of those funds to put that track in, and so now all the board's responsible for is, I think every 2 or 3 years, Mark, resurfacing or resealing. There's a difference between resurface and resealing. Thank you. A lot of money difference in that. And so, you know, we'll take care of it. But thank you to the members of the PTA at Hillview for that effort. And then from Sarah Gunlich, in memory of Dr. Billy Booth, $200 to Cherry Valley for Feed the Children. And as always, we're very blessed in our district to have so many donors and that help us with our families. And so that's nice to see. Item D is Kathy McWalters of McWalters Consulting Group. It's recommended the board approve a service agreement with Kathy McWalters Consulting to provide program evaluation service to Newark City schools for 21st century grade-funded programs at Ben Franklin, Carson, McGuffey, and Cherry Valley, Heritage and Wilson Middle Schools, and Newark High School. So there are 4 grants out there that Kathy helps us write and helps evaluate them, and she's done a wonderful job, her and Gemma, doing that. And that is funds paid for out of the grant. So that's not general fund dollars. That's paid for out of the grant. So $10,000 for each grant, which is a bargain. We're spending $10,000 to each grant to help write and evaluate and make sure it's going right. And like the high school, we have $200,000 out of it. So good deal for us. So B, C, and D.
All right, items B, C, and D, motion to approve those.
So moved.
Thank you, Tom.
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Blind.
Yes.
Mr. Blouse.
Yes.
Ms. Nickon.
Yes.
Mr. Weber.
Yes.
Mr. Carr.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, I think that's a majority of our business. Board of Education reports. Anything from you gentlemen?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have nothing.
well, board discussion. Board discussion, Tom?
Get started.
Father of the groom, we'll get started.
Want to thank Julio for the 5-year forecasting report. That is very important stuff that we have that, we can follow that, work with it, and continue to plan and handle our money appropriately. Like to congratulate the Hillview PTA on their walking track. It seems like it's only been, what, a year and a half? I think they were in here asking permission to do this. And to raise that much money that fast, you know, that was a heck of a job they did. I think it's probably appropriate to mention, since this is the first time we've met since the state report card came out, to mention it. You know, it seems strange when I look at some of those scores and to think not too many years ago the state was rating us excellent. And I'm sure we're not doing things any worse than we were at that time. You know, people talk about raising the bar. I don't think the state's raising the bar on us as much as they're just moving the bar around. So you don't know quite where to jump. You know, if anybody wants a good, objective look at it, they can go into ODE's website. There is a place there where you can find, they rate each district as being similar to 20 other districts socioeconomically. And you can then look at the overall scores, and when I did, I narrowed it down to comparing Newark to the 20 districts that are socioeconomically similar, and found that we were probably in the upper tier. You know, not probably, we're undoubtedly in the upper tier of those districts. So I think the state's not doing a very good job of rating what they're trying to rate. Hopefully at some point we'll get a chance to rate ODE's job there. And I found something, happened to stumble on something the other day that I wanted to read. You know, I thought Denise would appreciate this. And you know, when you talk about the state rating us and what we're doing and everything, this is How to Be a Teacher in 2017. Make sure your students' academic, emotional, psychological, mental, spiritual, physical, nutritional, and social needs are being met, while being careful not to overstimulate, understimulate, or neglect them in a classroom that is plastic-free, processed food-free, negative energy-free, body-conscious, socially conscious, mindful, egalitarian but authoritative, nurturing but fostering of independence, gentle but not overly permissive, and uses just the right amount of technology. Too much and you'll harm their development. Too little and you won't set them up for the future. Oh, and don't forget the pencil. I think that pretty well sums up what our teachers deal with on a daily basis there. And real quick, I want to close with a personal note. The Blind family had a big day Saturday, Blind and Estevez, as we had a wedding, and the bride and groom decided that they would have Reverend Tim Carr perform the ceremony. I tried to warn them, but you know, young people can be rather thick-headed.
The foolishness.
And I just wanted to publicly thank Tim for doing an excellent job. Nobody knew what they were doing at the rehearsal. Tim just took charge. He got us in and out of there. Everything went fine, and the bride and groom were looking for a relaxed type of atmosphere, and Tim's demeanor, Tim's approach just set that just perfectly. and he really played a big part in their big day. He would have played a little bigger part, would have been able to stay for dinner at the reception had he had the foresight to buy a clip-on tie for a certain person who was going to homecoming and didn't know how to tie a tie. So Tim had to go home and do that duty. So he missed out on supper after all the work. I just had to mention that. But anyway, thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Tom.
Excellent job.
I had a ball.
I'd like to first thank Julio for his multiple learning styles here. This is great. Seriously, very good. I really appreciated that report. There is a choir concert tomorrow night, big night, and I'm looking forward to hearing the kids. Marching band's received a series of superior ratings, and it is possible for every band in a contest to get a superior rating, but they went one step beyond that. They were grand champs at their last competition, I believe. Yeah, and it's a big year for the band. So congratulations to Lee Auer and his staff. I appreciated the personal invitation from the girls soccer team for their senior night. How can you say no when you get a postcard with their pictures on it and each of them signed their own names to the card? You know, that was very special. So I'd like to thank the coach and the ladies for that invitation. And I will not deliberate on the state rating discussion here. Thank you, Tom, for that little bit of insight, so thank you. Okay, with that, I'm finished.
Okay. Well, I do have something to say tonight, so.
Write this down.
I'm taking notes.
Okay, I want to also thank Julio for the presentation, and actually for, since you've been here, the presentations that you brought in the treasurer's report. For me, it's been very easy to process and understand. Numbers just, well, I took algebra 4 times in college to get it right, so you can understand my appreciation for numbers, but I really do appreciate the way these books and stuff are.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. The other thing is Tom and I attended the Citizen of the Month Friday, and that's always a pleasure. And so if any of you all get a chance to come to that, I mean, it's just, to see these kids and how hard they worked, and their parents and grandparents, and, it's just enlightening to see there are some positive things, believe it or not, that happen in our school district, The other thing is there's a Lifetime Achievement reception, I think, for Ben Franklin Walking Club.
Well, yeah, it's at the LMH.
Right.
The Lifetime Achievements for a person, Ben Franklin will get an award at that for their walking club.
Okay, and that's on the, I don't know if you all got the invite, so. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Good.
It's hard to believe, but the last week has been so incredibly busy and fantastic in our districts, and you gentlemen have already touched on several of them. But we also we won a football game. Several senior nights is the season for that. Homecoming was awesome. Lots of students coming back, lots of recent grads coming back, and it's very exciting to see what they're doing after high school athletic-wise. Got a lot of kids playing sports at the college level now, very successful at it. So it's kind of exciting to touch base with some of those kids at homecoming and to hear what they're doing. And of course, the band is doing really well. They actually marched in Ohio Stadium over the weekend, so that's always exciting when you get to go march there. And it's pretty neat to watch Newark up on the Jumbotron at Ohio Stadium. It's pretty cool experience. But so many fun things going on, and all good. but not just on the fun side and not just on the sports side, but also we just, National Honor Society inductions. Another class in the National Honor Society in the last week or so. And so it's just lots of great things going on in the district as usual. And so it's just a really exciting time, fall's in full swing.
These reports I have given you, they will be on the website. Tomorrow we're going to be load them up so that people who didn't make it to the board meeting, they can have access to those documents as well.
I want to thank Julio for his work on the 5-year forecast. As Warren said, you know, I sit down and with Julio and being a superintendent for 18 years now, I've had that opportunity a lot and really appreciate working with you. I know our team does. Julio come in and we talked the other day. There's a reminder that this forecast in the last 12 months has had 3 different sets of professional eyes on it. So conservative as it is pretty accurate because it did not change a whole lot over the course of that. So Julio's come right on here and fit very well in with our team here. So I know you've had a pretty hectic 6 months.
It has been.
Not quite even 6 months, really, has it? When you think about it. But you know,
6 months these last 4 months.
But I hope you're feeling part of our team here, and I appreciate your work with that. As Mike mentioned, big choir concert tomorrow night. I want to do a shout out to all the folks. I'm talking parents, the directors, and most importantly our students, because it has been a hectic 6 months in our choir program. And you know, we've got tremendous student leadership, which we ask our students to step up and lead that. And it's such a terrible life lesson that they've had to learn and had a bad summer and those kind of things. But our students and really the whole team up there has done a fantastic job. So I'm looking forward to that program tomorrow night and really want to show our appreciation. Speaking of the band, I walked through there today and they have a 7-foot trophy in the hallway from Lucasville Valley, which was kind of neat for Lee because he started that competition down there when he was the band director down there. So he went back and won his own baby. So that was really special. And you know, I don't have a trained eye for formations and things like that in a band program, but I have a trained eye on students who are working hard and having fun. And that little comment, they have something special going on in our band right now, from the parents to the directors and our students. So that's kind of neat to see. I will mention last week 2 0-7 teams played, and you know, on a Friday night, and one school that remained nameless had about 10 people there supporting their students, and another school called Newark had a whole bleachers full of people and people surrounding the field. And it just reminds me what I think good education is about community and the community support we get for our students. They weren't all there to see the football game, they were there to see the band, but the homecoming festivities, and Jessica's sitting here, Jessica Corum, one of our assistant principals at the high school. We had a good crowd at the homecoming dance. Not that I chaperoned it, but we had a good crowd. I checked on that today. Our students were very well behaved and a good crowd, and so that needs to be mentioned. You know, how the community support that we receive here in Newark is very much appreciated, and I always like to see our student section. You'd have thought we were 7-0 the other night. I mean, they were still like they were game 1, and so that was really, really neat to see. One thing I want to bring up, because we focus a lot on this for our children in our district, is we want them to come into clean buildings with positive environments. And we try to focus on how we start our day off in the Newark City schools. We want to start our day off positive for all our children to come into a positive environment. And at Ben Franklin Elementary, they sent me this down, that a student at Ben Franklin, a first grade student, wrote a short little paragraph. And it says, "I like school. The things I like about school, I like the way the teachers greet us in the morning. And when I received this, it kind of brought a few tears to my eyes, because that was almost like, bam, that's what we want. And so a little first grader pointed this out in a little thing. So I just thought, boy, if you want to know if we're doing the right things, this little first grader kind of reinforced that for us. And Tom had brought up the report card and those things like that. And I have to say, I don't focus on a report card because it doesn't mean anything. But I will tell you, since Tom brought it up, that we did improve in 19 of 24 areas. They just changed a rating system on us. We did improve in 19 of 24 areas, which was impressive. And I thank our staff for their work on testing. So I think when you were rated excellent at one time and you turn around and improve 19 and 24 areas, you can call that what you want. But this little first grader knows what those soft skills that we're working on, that tells me it's getting through to kids, because those soft skills include positive attitudes and environment, because that's what employers want. As we're going around talking to our employers here, they want those soft skills in children. So it's good to see that we're working on that. And this could have been a child at Carson Elementary or Newark High School or any of those, because our environments are very positive. So thank you to everyone who makes that happen. Good stuff.
It is. Great time to be a cat.
Always has
I got a
been.
7th grader that loves getting juice or fruit or something in the morning, not that she doesn't get fed at home. Just, you know, it just tastes better. It's nice. It is, yeah. The apples are relatively new. Ours are weeks old, but it's okay. You know, so proud of the band. What an awesome thing to be at OSU and to do so well. Then the grand champion thing as well. That's doing a wonderful job. The last time I was on the field at OSU, it was grass, and it was illegal. So it was way after hours, and nobody was supposed to be out there. Statute of limitations, officer, for sure. Love seeing all the banquets and the senior nights and all those things. Our athletes are wrapping up seasons. Had lunch the other day with the treasurer for the Hillview PTA, a good friend and a minister out at Martin United Methodist, and we were talking about that walking path, and I just thought, with the limited sidewalks sometimes in some areas, what a wonderful thing that is, to have that they can go and the citizens can go and walk, and it's wonderful to know that they're doing that, and just continuing to, and I want to be able somehow to invite the middle school band to come to every football game till the end of the year, because apparently that's the key. If the middle school band kids are there, we win. And but that was, what an awesome thing that is to see all those young people out there, and I'm sure that was an incredible night for them to be out there. Some of those, the young ones, what a wonderful thing for them. I'm not going to go long on the grade card thing, other than to say the elite schools didn't like the fact that we were keeping up with them, so they petitioned people to change the way that it was scored. And you know, because those folks that pay twice what we pay in property tax feel like they ought to get better than they deserve. And if I sound bitter, it's because, yeah, I am. You know, because we work hard and we've got great teachers. My wife does that, and we've got excellent teachers. The only kids that don't think she's an excellent, well, anyway. It is, but it amazes me because we have wonderful teachers, we got wonderful administration, and it's an incredible time to be a Newark Wildcat. And I've got a boy sitting over there that's in 10th grade. I'm so happy he goes to this school, and my daughter as well. And so I think it's a wonderful place to raise your children. It's a wonderful place and to get an education, and proud of New York City schools. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second.
Warren, Call the roll.
Mr. Blowers?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Blind?
Yes.
Ms. Nager?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Motion carries.
We are adjourned at 7:20. Go Cats.